push the top back. I've been hustling for a long time and I can't stop that. Big like I'm Nick, best believe it, and them all back. Yeah, I be ballin' all the time. I'm point guard and a quarterback.
Hey, thank you everyone for tuning in for another sports and culture interview. This is our segment that is our women's and sports interview. And we have a new sponsor now, which is LT Butler Company, whose mission is fulfilling hearts with happiness, like creating stories, which is called Destined to Be, this beautiful book right here. And the sponsor, of course, just happened to be my wife. But Destined to Be is a story about a little girl finding out what she is eventually destined to be. And we're going to find out what our guest is destined to be. I have the owner and co-founder of POWERHANDZ, one of the greatest companies in the country. We back them. Of course, we are connected with the QB Legacy, which backs them as well. We're going to talk more about their product. But I want to introduce everyone to Danyel Surrency Jones. Miss Jones, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. And Tyler, congratulations to your wife. I love the title of that book. That is pretty powerful.
Oh, I'm sure she's tuning in, and I'm sure she thanks you.
Well, awesome. And yes, just slip that over to my email. I'd love to support, and also whatever I can do that to share that with the rest of the community. That would be great.
Apps, I most definitely will. We're going to get into a lot, and talking about community and helping. Definitely have a couple of questions with those as well.
Awesome.
I always like to kind of kick everything off from the very beginning, take you back to the youth days. So let's go back to little Danyel. Like, what did you want to be growing up, and what do you think she would say about what you have become?
Oh, great question, Tyler. Interestingly enough, right? I've always believed that I had multidimensional talent. So growing up, I wanted to be a nurse by day and a ballerina by night. Interesting, right? The woman that lived behind our family house was a nurse, and my mother was a educator for 30 years, but she also taught ballet all the way up until college, as well as had a program when she taught elementary school. So when we talk about, right, you are what you see and what you're exposed to, those were my goals because I saw two amazing African American women, and that's who they represented: strength in the community, a career, a track of education. And I thought that's what I wanted to do based on my exposure to them. Now,
Wow.
Great question, right? What would Danyel tell the young Danyel tell the future Danyel?
Yeah.
Or the current Danyel?
The current Danyel of what she's
Okay.
saying
There's
right
a
now.
future Danyel, right? I love that. So what the young Danyel would tell the current Danyel is, one, I'm proud of you. I'm glad you recognized what your strengths were and you tapped into your purpose. And now you understand what your worth and value is to the community and your overall legacy. That's what she definitely would say, right? And I think the example that I just gave you is pretty much so what we're trying to fight against. We no longer want a little girl or a little boy to only be exposed to a micro ecosystem. We want them to tap in and learn so much about who they are so that they can be able to start their career earlier and understand their purpose sooner.
I'm so glad you said that, because I do think that is a big disconnect, especially in our community. A lot of people don't really get to know what their purpose is early on, and they kind of go through life, even through college, taking up a major that they really didn't want and completely changing it midway through graduation. So I've seen that a lot.
it is so true, and it is because at the table, right, we have been taught for centuries that you go to college, you finish your education, right, you get an advanced education, and you get a job, and you stay in that job or career for 30 years. You get your 401k, and boom, you move forward.
Just
Now what
retired.
we're doing, right, is we're understanding that there are multiple paths, multiple streams of income, and that we have multiple purpose and value that we bring to society as a whole, and we feel more comfortable in our skin to unleash that. And that's again what I'm looking forward to with the future generation, learning from people like myself, especially women.
Absolutely. Um, the black elephant. I watched the TED Talk. I loved it, by the way.
Thank you.
What story can you share about overcoming adversity or objections being a woman of color in the sports and medicine industry?
Wow, there's so many, right? I will, if I must refer to one of the stories that's in the Black Elephant TEDx that I did. It really summarizes what I have experienced as a woman in the industry, in sports, technology, media, right? Because that's the verticals that Power Hands crosses. What you don't realize when you are an innovator and a creator is that others will profile you based on what they know. You think that your innovation and what is providing value to whatever industry, that people will appreciate it based on the impact. Well, in our society, right, and this is what we're trying to now denounce, but people will um, make a quick decision on your brand and identity based on who is the face,
Hmm.
right? And one of the examples that I mentioned in my TED Talk was that I was working out with at a 7-on-7 tournament with Clay Mack, who's one of the most amazing body mechanic specialists that I know, and trainers. He was explaining, of course, what Power Hands was and the benefits of Power Hands portfolio to wide receivers and as well as some DBs. And I was allowing him to do that because one, I believe, leadership is evoking passion into others. So it actually is gratifying to me to see someone else talk about our innovation with so much passion, and I have to just sit back, right, and say nothing. So at the end, being the individual that Clay is, I have earned his respect, not just as a woman, but as a professional. He then, of course, looked at me, and I interjected and said, yes, just based on the scientific concepts, right? This would help you get out of your break faster. And we've done X, Y, and Z studies. And so one of the athletes that was in this conversation turned and said, "What do you know about Power Hands?"
Mhm.
And really had this, and it wasn't just him, he was speaking what probably five or six of them wanted to say. It was probably a group of 12 that were in the discussion. And Clay immediately, before I could even utter the words, he said, because she's the CEO of Power Hands. And you would have thought that CEO meant something else other than chief executive officer. They were so shocked that I was a woman who had created a product technology within football that they were utilizing on a daily basis, benefiting from a daily basis because I did not play the game, right?
Right.
And they felt like, why and how could she create where she didn't play the game? And how does she have a voice in this situation when she doesn't look like me? And I think that moment was so pivotal for them to recognize and understand not something about me, but about themselves, to realize that looking at me as a male, you will be under that type of scrutiny as well. You will want to create something or do something that someone feels you cannot do. You have to use me as an example as a woman in sports, media, and overall technology to recognize that we can push through and create whatever it is that we want to create if we have the right team, if we have the right skill sets and knowledge and information, and we have the right infrastructure in order to push that cycle through to to fill a need in a gap and provide a solution. So that for me is overall critical and a critical moment that really sums up my career as it relates to the evolution of who I've become as a woman in sports and technology, but more importantly, how I think my presence impacts others and drives them beyond their insecurities.
Yeah, and I think my favorite part, of that explanation was you made it clear to the crowd that even though it's called the black elephant, it could play off your favorite color, which is black. And you told the story about how your friend related to you when you received the news that you had the big promotion, that she was not of color, but she was a white lady. And I felt, very intrigued by it because it seemed as if, as unfortunately, a black male and owner of a media company, when I go into other schools, I'm the only person in the room that looks exactly like me. And
Mhm.
it happens far more often than people realize. So I related to that a lot. And I thought that was so very well put how you broke that down during your TED talk.
No, thank you. And it was important because that TED Talk was in Frisco. And I wanted people to understand when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is around the conversation and your lens, right? It is not black and white. It is really understanding how do we represent the underserved, those that don't have a voice. So whoever fits into that underserved category, that's who we should be building muscle to pull a seat up to our table to invite them to really show their brilliance. And that's what that TED talk was. I feel I was so happy that I finally realized what my purpose was and message was in January of 2021. And then what happened after that in March?
Pandemic.
Throughout the entire year, pandemic and social injustice. So
Right.
I was speaking on something that was stirring in my heart and has been stirring in my heart throughout my entire career, um, only for us to be awakened by social injustice when we watch George Floyd lose his life, right? So I just again I feel from a timing aspect, it wasn't me. That topic was really me just being obedient to help us get through what we have experienced the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Now, to talk about that promotion, you were the first woman president of Medtronic Sales Employee Research Group, which is a $29 billion company.
Mm.
How did that role help prepare you for the role that you're in today?
That role, as well as all my roles, from my first lemonade stand that I had at 5 years old, that I had my dad create for me, all the way to this role, is helping me evolve and understanding how I can make greater impact. That particular role, I will never forget. One of my mentors, and she's passed away, Sharon Piper Diggs. She was one of the most incredible women that I have ever had the opportunity to learn from. She was a huge advocate for DE&I, and she always talked about that diversity, equity, inclusion is not a problem, right? To solve, it's a solution to be had, right? And so she called me, as well as some of the other senior sales African Americans within Medtronic. And they said, Danyel, we don't mean to put you on the spot, but when we look at Excel and where this organization needs to go, one, you're the most senior woman, Black woman at the time within Medtronic. And two, we feel that your voice as a woman, they need to hear it, understand it, and you're going to have a certain thought process and methodology that they have not seen before from this group. So it is time. It is time for you to lead and be the first woman. Tell me how you feel. And I was like, did you guys really just call me and put me on the spot because you're going to nominate me for this and you're telling me that this is my greater purpose, etc.? And I was like, wow, okay, well, let me embrace this. Let me understand, right? What does this mean? Because Tyler, what I never realized is how much courage it took me to accept it based on my underlying fear. Do you know what my underlying fear was?
Well,
I
what was
did
that?
not want to be ostracized or pigeonholed by the other white males who had the key to my success by being the president of an African American sales group for a 40-ish billion-dollar company, when I am representing all cultures, backgrounds in order to enhance their life. And I was nervous that if I chose that position, that the conversation outside of the meetings and the boardroom would be about, we can't say certain things around Danyel, or Danyel is now too Black. So my representation became different, and how they represented me, I thought would be different. That's what I was most scared about. Not leadership, not using my voice for the team. I was nervous that I would be ostracized as a result of leading that position.
Yeah, and I can just from you explaining it, I can totally envision it because of the group that you were taking over, and we've just seen it unfortunately far too often when it seems like we do lean a certain way. Just for example, now we're starting to cover a lot of HBCUs, and I've gotten, of course, a lot of positive feedback, but I've received some negative feedback as well, which
Yes,
should come as no surprise. But I would say we lost a couple of peers just because of that.
I understand. And here's what I will tell you that I have recognized throughout my career. Anytime you represent what's not popular, you are going to get some backlash. But our voice and our purpose and our skill sets are to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Those people that are mission driven in that direction, we should build a muscle of resilience against all of that backlash, where at some point it doesn't even phase you. It's just a part of the journey
Right.
and the story.
Absolutely. Wow. Now let's get to Power Hands.
Yep.
I also saw an interview that you said that your business partner, your husband, said that you put a lot of his ideas on ice. What was it about Power Hands that was so different where you was like, I think this one is going to work?
And I think every time Darnell says, if I have an idea, Danyel will throw cold water at it about 99 times, right? But this time she didn't. I just remember so vividly when Darnell walked into the kitchen and in 2013, and he said, "Hey, let me explain something to you. Since the age of 10, I've been using gardening gloves since I heard, Jason Williams in a Slam magazine article talk about how he improves his ball handling skills. And I've been doing that. And then I added ankle weights to my wrist. And I realized that it made it the hardest workout because now you have weight and you're stripping your dexterity." So I did that throughout my entire playing career. When I train guys now, and he was working with Darren's AAU team, Darren Williams, he said, I use that same technique without any question or thought. And I always get the same feedback. Man, this is crazy. This is hardest workout. Like, I feel my hands and arm burning. I feel my core burning, and boom, the reaction and speed that I get and response time I can tell is immediate after the intervals of workout. So my background, of course, is in business. It's in healthcare. It's in science and technology with Medtronic. So I immediately understood the scientific principles that he was tapping into. So for me, when he said, I've looked and there's no comprehensive product that's out there, right? I then gave him probably about 100 questions in a series of maybe 10 minutes. And I realized that we just did a discovery on, here is a market, a viable opportunity, right? That we could not only scale within basketball, but a couple of different sports as well as healthcare, because that was our lane, right? I knew that was my lane. Darnell, even though former professional athlete, he was in the healthcare industry as well. So we knew that we had something that would help the fundamentals of youth and their training from a skill development side improve through this technology. And I asked him, I said, if we don't move forward with this, do you feel like the next Michael Jordan will miss out? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and do our business plan. And we both have always been entrepreneurial. When we were dating, that's actually what attracted us to one another. When I was working for Medtronic, I had come up with an idea that I wanted to launch, but because of my contract and the level that I was at with Medtronic, they would have owned any patent or ideas that I had at that particular time. So us starting a business, we knew that was going to be a part of our legacy. And so that went from questions to white papers and business plan, and going to friends and family round, and then launching from there.
Wow. Now, how much, just, talking about that perspective, how much research went into developing Power Hands?
A lot of research, and it's the reason that it went so much research went into developing Power Hands is because um, I came from that school of thought based on being pretty much raised by Fortune 100 and 500 companies. When I was working for a company called Diagnostic Imaging, it was purchased by Philips Medical Systems. And then I was integrated into that system, branched off. We were purchased by a private equity company. And I had to build the brand for that new company, started the first integrated marketing communications department, which had everything up under their strategy, product development, website, PR, etc. So all of that was exposed there. Then sales and marketing background. So I have always had a pragmatic approach to what I do from a market segment standpoint, and understanding, here is how the solution will benefit the universe. And now let's back into how we create that solution where we make the universe fall in love with it. That's just normal for the thought process. And Darnell, coming from a very small company, right? He's had to develop markets. So the yin and the yang mixed together help bring this brilliance to life.
Wow. And kind of just to piggyback, my wife and I have a similar background as far as both are entrepreneurs and trying to get everything started. So but one of our biggest struggle was trying to gain knowledge on how to maneuver, because, she is a dental hygienist and my background is mostly it was sales and customer service. So neither one of us came from, the business background where we would know the complexities and in and outs of starting it, or just gaining knowledge, or the hardest thing was just getting help. How did you guys go about, or did you have to go outside the box seeking other help? What were some of your strategies there?
Absolutely. And for any entrepreneur who has developed a company at any stage, all the way to the Fortune 100 companies, if they tell you that they understood all of the processes in each of the seasons that you have to go through in developing your business, from ideation to commercialization to sustaining to scaling to exit, they're fibbing.
Hmm.
So I want you to know that you are in a common place, right? And with that, if we know that we're not going to have all the answers, and that it is very important for us to put a plan in place to get the people, the strategic outline of what we have to do to attack that particular gap, right? And then whatever that funding is to support that. If we know that ahead of time, then that's how we should be analyzing and approaching each problem that we need to solve. So, for instance, if you are trying to figure out, you have a CPG product and you are trying to figure out how I get it, this idea packaged, and what the distribution model is, etc., and that has not been a part of your skill set, then you put a plan in place to get the people on your team. When you start out small, you don't have the money to pay someone. So then you look at an advisory board. So if I know that this is $100 million idea, right, and I know that it is scalable and that it's going to completely make impact, that passion should be able to be articulated to someone who will want to join your advisory board, right? So that advisor, then you fill the gaps with their knowledge to help you on distribution, to help you on packaging and ideas, right? In addition to that, which is what we did. Just so happened, Darnell and I had some of these skill sets, which is a very good thing. But our advisory board, we use it as an opportunity to fill the gap for those skill sets, either from influence, right, and having an additional voice to get us in rooms that we couldn't, as well as skill sets, having the knowledge across certain things that we didn't have in order to help us with the process. The next piece that was, so critical for us in understanding how to maneuver and figure this all out is really tapping into, for us, those that teach, right? So trainers. So looking at your market segment and saying, once I take this idea to commercialization, if I know I don't have a sales team, example, right? I know I can't afford a sales team at this time. Who is it that I can get to who has a voice and an ear and a consumer base that they can impact, right? Micro influencer, etc. What does that model look like to support it? And for them to then turn and become our sales team. So we then got creative in looking at ideas as to how we can then get our messaging out and help explode in an expedition manner, because speed is so important with anything that you launch.
Hmm.
And then the last example, right, that I will give is, at this stage, right, it is important to understand your why from day one and what your exit plan is from day one. So your why is your oxygen, and your exit plan, right, are your strides within taking in your oxygen. So my exit plan from day one, we're at the stage where that is finally happening. So with that, what is so important for us to understand is, how do we get the right people on the team? I never been through a tender offer. I have never been through a merger. So, who are the right people that need to support that from a legal standpoint, from a finance standpoint, from an advisor standpoint that's been through that we can talk to?
Wow, that is I'm glad this is recorded because I'm gonna go back and soak all this up and write it down and talk it over with my wife. Like, hey, did you hear that? Did you get that part? Because those are just nuggets that you're just not gonna get on a daily basis. So thank you for going into so much detail with that question. I appreciate it. Um, Another thing, you pointed out that 40% of women-owned businesses lack funding.
Mhm.
Why do you believe that is, and what all can we do to change that?
Um, I believe that society feels that women that are in business are a risk.
Mm,
Anything that is uncommon is a risk to individuals. So that is one aspect of why I believe that the ratio of funding that is dispersed to women is different. The second, women figure things out themselves. And so, just like you, right, not understanding the totality of the process will either push you to find someone who will help you figure that out, or a woman turns on a particular muscle that I'm going to get it done myself, right? And with that, getting it done ourselves, right, typically turns into in a business that you're trying to sustain and scale, shortchanging the mission. You have to have people around you that will help you understand what you don't know, and get you in rooms that you can't get into yourself, because we already know those statistics exist. We just need someone to help us break through those in order to move forward. So that's the second thing. We defeat ourselves by feeling that we can be a superwoman and figure things out. And then the third, I will say, is just a natural evolution of society, and how a profile of people, right, have moved from traditional jobs, from being the homemaker and the CEO of the home, to feeling and understanding that there's a balance, but you can do both. And that natural evolution will, if it's something for the household and the woman to embrace, imagine what it takes for an investor to understand that. Imagine what it takes for a private equity or a venture capitalist or an angel fund group to understand that, right? So with that, if we focus on number 3, when a woman walks into a room and she asks for funding, you should not look at it as they are looking at me as being incapable to run the business. It is just unorthodox, and where we are in this process of helping people understand that women are king and
I,
we can do anything that we want to do. So
I,
that's my three reasons.
you know, a lot of men won't agree, but I wholeheartedly agree, and I tell people this all the time. I said my number one goal with my company is I want 90% of it, if not higher, to be women.
That's
From
exactly what my husband said.
yeah, smart man. I mean, from marketing team to reporters to photographers, I want to be the first one out there to have a predominantly female company dominate the sports media industry, because it's unorthodox. They do not get a lot of opportunities in this field, and when they are given the opportunity, it's definitely not treated equally. So I want at least 95%, and for us to dominate in this field, just for others to look in and be like, that is a predominantly female ran company, and look what they're doing over there. So that's my overall end game.
That's awesome, Tyler. And you are a smart man as well, because we were put on this universe so that we can figure out how to impact together.
Hmm.
And if you realize the strengths that a and gifts that a woman has and how it can impact the business and the community, and you embrace that instead of fear that, the community grows at a faster rate. That is proven. The business grows at a faster rate. That is proven, right? So, with those statistics alone, we should allow our minds to shift and our lens to shift based on analytics. Don't let me tell you, look at the analytics, it shows you what
Yeah,
happens. So,
people love the numbers. Tell them to pull
mhm,
them up.
that's right.
Now, also back to Power Hands. Over the summer, of course, we covered the QB Legacy Camp, where Power Hands was front and center. We got to see a lot of athletes wear the Power Hand gloves, and my boy Mazio Bennett, who I will stand by as the best receiver in South Carolina, had on the power suit.
Hmm.
Talk a little bit of, I know we kind of discussed the weights in the wrist with the gloves. Let's talk about this power suit, because those athletes were extremely fascinated with what he had on. He loved it, said he was going to wear it throughout the season. How did you guys come about developing that?
No, thank you for that. And first of all, your support of the QB Legacy. The mission is incredible. The team of talented, passionate professionals that are on the board, as well as the regional directors, are incredible. So, thank you for supporting the QB Legacy and where it's going in the future, which I think great things are ahead. The
Agreed.
power suit is one of our patents that we've had for the last year and a half, 2 years. And that particular design came in partnership with another inventor. So, very interesting, right? We run across, and it doesn't matter what industry, a lot of people who have an idea, but they don't know how to move it forward. And we collaborated with this particular inventor who worked for a company that had, something that was weighted and compacted to the body, but not this patented suit. And so we went from sitting around the table, brainstorming, to creating several prototypes, to doing much research and testing, and of course to spending funding to immediately move to a patent. And the reason, Tyler, I feel that people are so fascinated by this particular product is because it's like anything. So one, why you buy your first Jordan shoe and spend all this money on a Jordan shoe? I don't know if that Jordan shoe made you walk faster, but it looked good, right?
Yeah, people
So,
believe it does.
yeah, you believe it does. So from a confidence standpoint, right, your mind has already shifted and you feel like you can break through the wall no matter what happens. So I think that the design, and that's why from our gloves to everything else that we do, the brand identity, the look, the feel, all of that is so important because we are trying to impact a generation of people that like aesthetics. So that's one of the reasons why I feel that that power suit catches their eye, from youth all the way up to professional athletes and the general fitness community. The second is the impact of weight. Weight resistance is a scientific principle that has been around forever. And weight resistance added to things, it is an overload. And so when you are normally used to running a route, right, with just your natural body weight and catching a ball, and you put on a 10-pound suit, it's instant that you're going to feel the difference. Oh my gosh, I feel the difference with 10 pounds of weight, and I can catch the ball. Then you do it over again. Now you're adding repetition. And so now you're stretching from a confidence standpoint from one stage to the next, to now your body is being impacted because your muscles are stretching from here, your core, your legs, your feet, your hand movement, all of that is getting sped up. So you take it off and you immediately see the difference that your speed was from before you put it on to 15 minutes of working out there's not a lot of technology that's out there where you can see the results of something and feel it that quick, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
I think that's the other reason why using and staying in our lane with science that has been proven over and over again, and of course integrated into the power suit, makes absolute sense.
And I have two questions left because I don't want to keep you all night. But it's like I have so much to discuss. But I am a huge, and I love talking about this with people, advocate of mental health. And I like to ask other owners because I don't think people understand how busy your life can be when you're running a company, whether it's with 0 employees and you're all by yourself or hundreds. What are some things that you do to kind of take your mind away from the business and just, put yourself at ease? How do you continue to make sure that your mind is physically healthy as well?
Yeah, Tyler, I'm a huge component of mental health as well. And again, that was something else that was not spoke of in our households and at the dinner table, right? It was something that was taboo. And
Mhm.
today, I always tell people it's no longer taboo, it's your truth. Every single person in every single household um, has to go through some type of regimen or incorporate some type of regimen where we don't let the pressures of life drive us insane, right? Um, that is from the person who has all the resources in the world that you may think, right? But your purpose is different. So the glass house that we're looking through is different from what they see when they look out the window, right? So
Right.
one, the mental health for me, a judgment. Whew, I set that aside. So one, let me let me back up. One, I tell people it's okay not to be okay, and you got to admit that.
Hmm.
Two, I tell people to stop comparing your life to other people. You
Oh,
don't know
that's a big one.
what their journey has been when you see that 10-year highlight, right? You may be starting into your second year and whoa, they would have never posted their second year. So understanding where you are in the process and not comparing yourself to others is so important as a mom or dad, all the way to an entrepreneur, businessman or woman, right? The third piece is know your limits and know the resources that you need to get. And for me, I have had a therapist off and on since I believe my late 20s, based on understanding uh, who can I talk to about the imposter syndrome that I was feeling in corporate America, about who is stirring around, well, what is stirring up in my soul and in the belly of my soul that I'm afraid to unleash, right? Not anything that happened to me from a traumatic standpoint, but because I wasn't dealing with those things and processing those things, it could have been traumatic. So I went through our employee resource group and I wanted to talk to someone. I did not want to talk to my mom. I did not want to talk to anybody I was, dating or my sister or brother. I wanted an unbiased opinion. And so that's when I started therapy. My husband and I have gone to therapy. Our kids during COVID, there was a package out with United Insurance plan where they gave 10 sessions free for everybody in the household. And I
Wow.
had my daughter, myself and my husband taking individual sessions and us as a family. I am and I'm not shy to talk about it. It is so important to understand your limits and understand the pressure that you're going to be in based on what is connected to your purpose. And you have to protect your brain because that is your best friend. I will say it again, protect your brain because that is your best friend. And if you're not healthy, there's no way in the world that you can share that love and that purpose with anyone else. So, those things that I just mentioned to you are what I have done and will continue to do, and will continue not to hide that they are a part of helping me balance and being able to really explode in my gifts.
And lastly, probably I would say my favorite thing about your company, Power to Give.
Mm.
Can you talk about what that organization is all about and what do you guys have coming up?
Yeah, so the Power to Give Foundation, what I'm most proud of is that day one, we did not choose between making profits and doing good in the community. Day one, we have had an initiative that then turned into our 501c3, where we wanted to make sure that little girls and little boys could look at someone like myself, Darnell, and our entire team and see how we can be trailblazers in technology, trailblazers in sports, and how you can dream beyond the field or court, making it to being a professional athlete, but you can own a team. You can have be a general manager. You can be VP of sales, right? So giving resources back to an underserved community to help them learn lifelong lessons through sports. That's what the Power to Give Foundation is absolutely all about. And what we have coming up, I'm very excited about. Obviously, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month and our Power to Fight. We have been doing pink breast cancer awareness gloves for the last 5 years. I come from a family who are breast cancer survivors, with the exception of my aunt, who sacrificed her life to help us understand what this disease really meant to society as well as to our lineage. And we will be obviously selling our breast cancer awareness gloves, and we are deciding, as we do every single year, what is the nonprofit that will get a percentage of the profits of those gloves. So I'm super excited about that because October is right around the corner.
That is awesome. And me and my wife, well, I talked to you off camera about that. So we don't want to make the public announcement yet, but hopefully there's some things coming down the line as well that we can do
Okay.
here in the upstate. But I wanted to thank you again for your time today. This has been an absolute incredible conversation. How can everyone follow you and Power Hands on social media?
Thank you, Tyler. It's been a really great conversation, and congratulations to you for being a trailblazer. And just whatever we can do to support, we definitely will. You can follow Power Hands on all social channels at POWERHANDZ, Power Hands. And you can follow me at Danyel Surrency Jones. That's SURRENCY and Jones, JONES.
Again, it's Danielle Surrency Jones, CEO of Power Hands. This has been another Women in Sports interview. Thank you so much for tuning in.
No, thank you so much. Truly appreciate it.